Hi good people, Titus here for another Unreal Engine tutorial, and in this video I'll show you how to create custom spline tools to automate some of your workflows. This will be helpful for things like creating roads, or creating rivers, or even vegetation like vines. In this project example we're going to use it to create some pipes. Let's not waste any time and just jump right into it. Okay, so I got the third person template. Let's go ahead and work on our blueprint. You can right click, select blueprint class, and we're going to do of type actor, and I'm going to call this one BP_pipe. So I'm going to double click this, and then the component we need to add is the spline utility component. So it's right here. We'll add that, and it just adds this basic spline, so nothing too fancy. We're going to be working in the construction script. We're going to write 2 custom functions, and we're going to have 1 custom variable. So let's make the variable real quick. The variable we can call maybe pipe length or mesh length, basically whatever you're using this to automate. This one is going to be of type float, and I'm going to make it publicly facing so we can adjust it in the editor. Setting the default value at 0 for now. We'll need to adjust that later to make our mesh show up, but we'll wait on that. Let's go ahead and write our first function. This one we can maybe call find position. Basically what this is going to do is we have some length of spline, say like 100 meters. We need a way to be able to tell where along that spline we are currently at. And that's what the code on this one's going to do. So for our find position, we're going to need 1 input. And this is going to be the index of our for loop. So we can call this maybe the mesh index. And it needs to be of type, I think, integer makes the most sense. And then we'll need 2 outputs. So the first output we can call maybe our location value. And because it's a location, it means it has an X, Y, and Z, which means it is a vector. So we'll use vector for that type, and then we'll hit the plus button once more to add our second output. And this one will be our tangent value, which is also going to be a vector. The math is pretty simple. What we can do is we can grab our spline, and we can pull into a get location at distance along spline. And then the other one we need is get tangent at distance along spline. And then we basically just need to take our current index, multiply that against the length of our mesh, or in this case the pipe length. And then we can pass this value into this distance and pass this value into that distance. And that's the basic math, I guess. The top one we will pass into the location value, and the tangent we will pass into the tangent, of course. So then we can compile and save, and that is our first function down. The second function is a lot simpler, so we will click the little plus sign. This one we can maybe just call it clamp mesh size. And basically this is probably optional. You may not even have to do this. It depends on your mesh. Some of the meshes that I've noticed when you do this, they kind of bend in such an unnatural way where maybe the normals invert, doesn't look right. So this can sort of help with that. And it's going to basically take in an input, and the input we can call maybe our tangent value. It's going to be of type vector, and it'll pass in 1 vector, of course, and this will be our clamped value. And I think to drive the math, all we're going to do is we can call into the clamp vector size, and then we'll start at 0, and then we will take our pipe length. We will divide that by 2. And then we will set that as the max that will allow the tangent to stretch along. So it won't go any further than that. And then we'll just pass in the tangent value here. The clamped value goes out there. Compile and save. And then that's pretty much the 2 functions that we needed to write. Now we're going to be working in the construction script for this one. Currently you see it's just a spline. There's nothing there. So the function's just a basic for loop, nothing fancy. And then the for loop is going to call add spline mesh component. And after you add your mesh component, this is where you dictate the mesh. So over here on the right, I'm going to use this pipe that I modeled in Blender. So it's basically going to create the pipe, and then we just need to tell it, you know, where we're putting it. So you need to set the start and end for the spline component. And it has the start position, end position, as well as the tangents that it stretches along. So the math here is pretty simple. First, let's build our index. So obviously we're starting at 0, but where do we end? Well, if you think about it, we have a length of spline. Like say you have 100 meters of spline. So we need to get that length, so get spline length. Once you have that length of spline, you can then divide that by some value. The value we're going to use is the length of our mesh. And that should tell you a rough approximation of how long or how big your index should be. And it'll automatically add a truncate in there for you. So basically just take the length of spline, divide it by the length of your mesh, it'll give you some number, and you can set that as the total index that we're going to be working with. Now, once you have that, we're going to be using our custom functions. So our first one is find position. So we need to find where along the spline we currently are. Are we in the beginning, or in the middle, or are we at the end? So if I drag this out, you'll notice it's a blue node. I need it to be green. So in the find position on the right-hand side, we can call pure, and I'll turn it into a green node. And then I can pass the index value in here. And then I can pass the location value into the start position. And then I need to clamp the tangent value. So I can drag the clamp in here. Again, it's blue. So I'll select the clamp, and on the right-hand side, I'm going to set it to pure. And then I'm just going to plug this value into this end and this value out on that side. And then pretty much we're going to be doing the same thing. We just need to figure the end position. So if you think about it, the end position will be the next mesh, right? So you lay your vine or your road or part of your river, and then you need to build into the next mesh. Well, you start at your current position, and that would just be the next position in the index. So we can just simply add 1, and then we just need to basically call find position, and then we need to call clamp size, and then we need to pass this into the end position, this one into the clamp function, and pass this into the end tangent. And that's pretty much the entirety of the function here. So if we compile, you'll notice we do have an issue. We forgot to pass in our return value here, but we also have another issue. So if I compile and save, if I go back to the viewport, you don't see anything. That's because we have not set our mesh length. Right now, the length of this pipe, I think this mesh is 100 units, but I'm going to set it to 200. And then I'll demonstrate like kind of not really an issue, but you know, some adjustments you can make that makes this tool kind of handy, I think. So we'll set it to 200. You see it shows up. So now we're good. So let's save, go back into our map, and let's actually add this in and see what it looks like. So it's a single piece of pipe, which, okay, that's fine. If I grab this little end piece, I can drag it out, and you see kind of where the magic is, where it just basically automatically adds like the mesh. And what's cool is I can grab this spline point, and I can push it over, and you can kind of see it starts to make a bend. And I can grab this one over here, which will open up these endpoints, and I can drag that over like so, or I can maybe drag it back this way. You can kind of sort of get some interesting shapes here. If you don't like the length, it's easy enough. When you select the actual parent blueprint object here at the top, your publicly facing exposed value is right here, and we can maybe lower that to like 100 units. And then you can see it kind of looks maybe a little bit better. But this on itself is only somewhat interesting. It's nothing too magical. Where this really takes shape is if we delete this and I go into modeling mode here. There's a create function called draw spline. So we can click on that, and we can set the output mode from empty to create blueprint. And then you can open up the advanced menus here. The draw mode right now is tangent. I'm going to set that to free draw. And some other changes, you might want to remove the rerun construction script. I'll leave it on for now just to show you kind of the lag you might deal with. But just with this, I can draw around my map, let go, and then I forgot to set my blueprint. So BP_pipe. And then you can see it automatically kind of creates this pretty cool, mesh effect. So if we accept that, I can then go in and lower the value. I can make dynamic adjustments. I can grab parts of the mesh, and you can see it's a little bit laggy. So what you can do too is in the class settings, run construction script on drag. Just uncheck that, compile and save. What that'll allow you to do is when you grab it, it'll move the spline first, and when you let go, it'll kind of then make the adjustments there. But that's pretty neat because you can, from the spline menu, you could then save this as a preset. So like if I create a new preset and then I call this, the pipe tool, custom spline tool for the tooltip. Whatever you want to kind of name it, this will now be available in pretty much all your projects. So if you're working in a team, they could easily then use this brush that you've effectively created under the favorites for the presets. And then they can begin modeling just like that. So like as an example, let's go back to selection mode. Let's create a new map. We'll do an open world. Okay, so we got our open world here. I'm gonna increase my zoom speed, fly over here to get somewhere interesting. All right, so I think this will work. So now if I go into modeling mode, I do draw a spline, and then I select the pipe tool, which is right there. I can then just, kind of draw out here, which I probably should have. Hang on, so let's cancel that and rerunning construction. There we go. All right, let's try that again and maybe get a little bit closer. There we go. And then I can paint along, this crazy slope. Then we can accept it. And then I gotta maybe slow down my camera viewport here, but you can see it's able to do a pretty good job laying, the mesh around the map here. And then you can go in and make individual adjustments and all sorts of other stuff. But I think this is a pretty cool automation trick that you can do for all sorts of things. Like, and then right now, like the length is 200. So if we make it like 100, the bends will become a little bit easier as it tries to recalculate that, and it just kind of does that workload there and kind of just gets the job done. So yeah. All right, everyone. I think we'll cut the video here, but I hope you found some informative value that you can take into your own projects. But as always, thanks for watching. Consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one.